It's Bible Club, it's Bible Club, it's Bible Club in our town. There's singing, there's laughing, let's get the word around. You're all excited, and we are all delighted. It's Bible Club, Bible Club, Bible Club, Bible Club, Bible Club in our town.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to see how smart you are. We're going to do it one more time, but none of the helpers are going to talk.
Uh-oh.
All the kids. Kids can help each other, but the helpers can't help. I'm going to get it started, and then we're just going to listen. Okay? Ready? Galatians, with me. You're going to take it away. Let's see how smart you are. Galatians 5:16. Walk.
In the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh.
Okay, we didn't get it all together, but a lot of people did it. Very good. That was very good. Were you looking at this? No, you couldn't see that. Okay, good. So, who can tell me the name of the man in our story from really 2 weeks ago? Yeah, from 2 weeks ago. There's a man in our story. And last week, this guy in our story. Remember this at the end of our story last week? Ian, do you remember? So, who could just tell me the name of the man in our story? It said 1, 2, 3 hands up. Anybody else think they know the name of the man in the story? Okay, you three. I'm going to count to 3 and you say the name all together. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Jacob.
Did everybody say Jacob? I think so. That's right. That was the name of the man in our story. And can anyone tell me who Jacob's father was? Can you remember who Jacob's father was? Abby, do you remember who his father was? No, his father was not Jesus. No. Remember, he deceived his father. He deceived his father and put goat skin on his arms and his neck. Remember what his father's name was? Nice try, but that was his grandfather's name. Ian, what was his grandfather's name? Say it again. Abraham. So we have Abraham, and Abraham's son was Jacob's father. Anybody remember his name? Amos? Isaac? Remember the name of Isaac? Now, Jacob, when he deceived his father, he was deceiving his father basically so he could steal something from his brother, right? He stole the blessing from his brother, and what was his brother's name? What was his brother's name? Last week and before we talked about him. Who? Adam? No, it wasn't Adam. Ian, you know this, don't you? Can you help me out? What was Jacob's brother's name? They were twins. His brother was born before Jacob, so he was supposed to get the birthright and the blessing, but Jacob sold a pot of stew to his brother for the birthright, and then he tricked his father to get the blessing, and he stole these things, basically stole them from his brother, and his brother's name was, I think Jasmine got some help. Did you get some help? That's okay. Who? No, who was it? Go ahead. Esau, that's right. And so Esau, remember, was Esau happy about that? Esau was upset. And what did Esau decide he was going to do? Jacob stole the blessing from Esau, and Esau decided he was going to do what? Weird. They thought too much this week. They've got all their thinking done for the week, and they're not going to think on Saturday. What? Remember? He was like, I hate him, and so I'm going to just kill him. Do you remember when he decided he was going to kill him? He was going to wait until something happened, and then he was going to kill his brother.
Wait, he was going to wait till his father died.
Exactly. He was going to wait till his father died and then kill him, and his mom heard and said, that's the worst thing in the world. I don't want to lose my husband and one of my sons in the same day. And so she developed a plan that Jacob would go and find a wife back where her family was from. And on the way, God talked to Jacob, didn't he? Let's not play with that anymore, okay? We'll play afterwards. God talked to Jacob. Was Jacob a good man? He was a trickster. He was a liar. He was a thief. But God still decided that he loved Jacob. And so he promised Jacob something. And Jacob decided, said, since God has done this, God is going to be my God, and I'm going to give him 1/10 of everything I own. And when I come back, I'm going to worship him here in this place where I had this dream. Okay? So, Jacob is continuing. Serenity, listen here. Jacob continues on his trip back to his mom's homeland. He's going to a different country. None of you have ever been in a different country, have you? But in your social studies class, you learn about other countries, don't you? They do things different ways in other countries, don't they? In America, we do it this way. In England, they do it that way. In Egypt, they do it another way, right? In Ecuador, they do it a different way. So Jacob left his home and went to another country, and he was just going. Now, sometime before, somebody else had made that trip, and he had 10 camels full of riches so that he could give to the family that would send a lady back to be Isaac's wife. When Jacob went, did he have 10 camels full of riches? He had nothing. Just him. Just him and his muscles and his strength and his abilities. It was just him. He didn't have a lot of money or anything like that. And he's going and going. Finally, one day he came up to a place where there was a well. And he got to the well, and a lot of people, Alec, listen here, a lot of shepherds were waiting around the well, and so he said, what town is this that I'm coming up to? And they said, it's Haran. He said, oh, that's where my mother is from. So he said, do any of you know Laban? Now, Laban was his uncle. He had never seen him before, but he knew his name. So do any of you know Laban? I said, oh yeah, we know Laban. In fact, there's his daughter, Rachel, coming with some of his sheep. So Rachel was coming up, and Jacob had been away from home for so long, and he'd been away from anybody he knew for so long, so he ran up and kissed her, like she was his cousin. Right? This is family. And I bet Rachel was like, who are you? She didn't expect to be kissed like a relative. And she said, and Jacob says, you're Rachel? You are, I'm Jacob, your aunt's son. And so Rachel ran home to tell her dad, Laban, and Laban ran out to the well to meet his nephew that he never met before in his life. And they just had a great time. And Jacob went to stay with Laban and his family. So he stays there for about a month. And things are going good. And Jacob, he doesn't just sit around and eat food all day. He goes out and works. He's helping Laban. He's tending his sheep and his goats and his cows. And so he's staying there. And so after a little while, Laban says to Jacob, look, I know you're my nephew, but I don't expect you to work for free. What can I give you for all the help that you're being to me here? And Jacob was like, I love Rachel. Now he knows, does he have 10 camels full of riches to give to the family that would let their daughter marry him? No. So he says, Laban, I love your daughter Rachel. I don't have any riches, but I will work for 7 years if you will give me Rachel, your daughter Rachel, to be my wife. And Laban says, I would rather you marry her than anyone else. It's a deal. So Jacob went out each day and worked, and the herds of Laban grew stronger and bigger. And after 7 years, it was 7 years. That sounds like a long time, doesn't it? How many of you are 7 years old? Some of you are less than 7 years old, right? older than 7, but 7 years ago was a long time ago. And so 7 years, and to Jacob, he loved Rachel so much, it was like hardly a day passed. He just worked and worked and worked, just looking forward to the day when he would finally get to marry Rachel. Finally, 7 years goes by, and Jacob says to Laban, Laban, I have done what I said. I've worked for 7 years. Now let me marry your daughter. And Laban says, you're right. Let's have the feast. We'll have the wedding feast. And you will marry my daughter. So they got the feast and the food and the music. And that night, Laban brought his daughter. And the way they did things there in that country, the bride wore a veil over her face. But you know when you've seen a wedding here, you can see the person through the veil? In that country, you couldn't see them. It's just a thick veil. You couldn't see who the person was. So Jacob was all excited. There's his Rachel. And so they go into the tent and they spend the night together. And there's no electricity, right? Because it's way, way back. In the morning, when the sun comes up, Jacob looks, and it's not Rachel. Can you believe that? It was Rachel's older sister, Leah. Jacob had been tricked, one of the worst deceptions that could ever take place. And now he was married to a woman that he didn't love. Who did he love? Rachel. But Laban brought him Leah, and now he's married to Leah. He goes out to Laban and says, what did you do to me? He says, Laban was like, hey, sorry man, in our country, remember things are different in other countries. In our country, the younger daughter can't get married until the older daughter is already married. So I had to give you Leah first because she hasn't been married yet. But here's what we'll do. After the week of feasting for Leah's wedding is over, you can marry Rachel too. And things were different back then, and Jacob was like, but I love Rachel so much. But Laban said, well, you'll have to work another 7 years for me. Well, that's kind of, he's taking advantage of him, isn't he? But Jacob loved Rachel and said, I'll do it. So, let me ask you something. That's a lot of trouble in Jacob's life, isn't it? How many of you have ever had trouble in your life? Sometimes not that big of trouble. Yeah, it's not that big of trouble. But lots of times we have trouble in our lives. Sometimes we're going along and our parents yell at us for something. Normally when our parents yell at us for something, why is that? Because we did something wrong, right? Sometimes when I was growing up and I did something wrong, my parents would give me a spanking if I did something wrong. Yeah, why did my parents do that? Because they didn't want me to do what was wrong. They knew if I always did what was wrong, I'd have a miserable life. What do we call it? Does anybody know the word that we use it when we say, like, I'm just going to give you the word. It's called discipline, right? Have you ever heard the word discipline? We have discipline or punishment for doing what's wrong. Our parents punish us or they discipline us because they want us to do what's right. The Bible tells us that godly parents will discipline their children, and the Bible also tells us that parents that don't discipline their children hate their children. That's what the Bible says, and what do we know about the Bible? It's true. It's true. If God said it, it's true. So parents that don't discipline their children hate their children, just like God disciplines his children that are not doing what's right. So you think God is sending this trouble into Jacob's life? Yeah. Why? He loved Jacob. Remember we said that God loved Jacob and he appeared to him? But just because he loved him, was he going to let him do whatever he wanted? No, he had to teach Jacob some lessons. And Jacob learned what it was like to be deceived. Had Jacob ever deceived anybody? Had Jacob ever deceived anybody? Yes. Let me show you a picture. Had Jacob ever deceived anybody? Yeah. And now Jacob got deceived, did he? God used, it was wrong. It was deceitful. But God used another person's deceitfulness to teach Jacob a lesson. Well, now, Jacob has 2 wives. You think that was a good situation? No. They're fighting with one another, arguing with one another, jealous of one another. Jacob loves Rachel and doesn't really care at all about Leah. And you think Leah felt good there? She didn't like it. They had a house that was full of trouble. You think Jacob had caused any trouble in his house when he was growing up? Yeah, he did. And now God was letting him see what it was like to have trouble in his house. God was disciplining him. God disciplined him. Why? Because he loved him. So Jacob, I can imagine, is like, oh, God, why do I have all these troubles? And he's like, remember the trouble that you caused? Maybe you'll learn not to cause trouble. Leah had a son. She thought, now my husband will love me. No, he didn't really care about her. She had another son and another. She had 4 kids. And Rachel had no kids. And so now Rachel starts yelling at Jacob. Why don't you give me kids? Now, that's just not the way it works. Was it in Jacob's power to give her kids? No. So there's so much trouble in his home, and God was using that trouble to teach Jacob a lesson. Then, finally, the 14 years had gone by. Why 14 years? 7 for Rachel, but he didn't get Rachel. So 7 for Leah, and then 7 for Rachel. And Jacob came to Laban and said, all right, I've worked for 14 years. I want to take my family, and I want to just go out on my own. And Laban said to him, oh, don't leave. I know that because you are here, taking care of my sheep and my goats and my cows, God has blessed me. I have more sheep and more goats and more cows than I ever had before. And I know it's because God is using you to bless me. So I want you to stay. And Jacob's like, I don't want to stay. You've changed my pay 10 times. And every time it's been for less than it was before. So Laban, I don't know, they went back and forth. And finally Laban said, well, what can I give you to get you to stay? And so Jacob said, all right, give me all the spotted and striped and brown animals. And you keep all the white ones. All the light ones and the white ones. And I get the striped and spotted and brown ones. And Laban was like, that's a good deal. Because most sheep are white. There's not very many brown ones. There's not very many striped ones. There's not very many spotted ones. And what I'll do is I'll just take those and keep them over here. And then I'll have lots and lots of white, light sheep. And so Laban said, it's a deal. But you know what? God intervened. And God made it so that in all the flocks of Laban, there was lots more striped and brown and spotted cattle that were born than the regular ones. God blessed Jacob. But things got... And so, Jacob had more and more stuff, and Laban didn't have as much as he had before. And Laban's sons, they got talking. And Jacob heard them. He said, Jacob is stealing all of our father's stuff. Now, was Jacob stealing his stuff? No. God just made it so that Jacob had more animals than Laban had. But Laban's sons were like, Jacob is stealing our father's stuff. And Jacob could tell Laban was not friendly toward him anymore. Now, that's not good, because Laban was his father-in-law, wasn't he? His wife's father, and if your wife's father is not happy with you, it's not good. So one night, God came to Jacob and said, I want you to go back to Bethel. Now, I think I did, but I might not have used that name. But this spot right here, where God spoke to Jacob in his dream, and when he got up, he anointed the rock, that was Bethel. That was one day away from home. It was really still home for him. It was a long way away from where he was now. And God said to Jacob, I want you to go back to Bethel. And so Jacob thought, yeah, it's probably about time, because Laban and his sons don't like me anymore. So he called his wives secretly, without their dad knowing, and said, we're going to leave, we're going back home. But we're going to wait till Laban is away, taking care of his sheep, and then we'll sneak out without him knowing. Did Jacob really need to be sneaky? He didn't, but he still thought this is the way to do things. He was doing things. You remember our verse says, walk in the Spirit and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. Was he walking in the Spirit when he was trying to sneak around? He was walking in the flesh, sneaking away. God told him to do it, but he was doing it his own way. Well, anyway, so pretty soon, Laban and his sons went off to take care of their sheep and their goats and all that, and Jacob said, now's the time. And so Jacob and his wives and all of his kids, there was a bunch of them, he had a lot of wives. He had a lot of wives by this time. So a bunch of them, and they took off, and they got 3 days away, and then Laban came back, and what do you think? He's looking around and says, where's Jacob? Where's my daughters? Laban got upset. He said, you can't just leave without saying goodbye. And he got his sons, and he got on his animals, and started chasing them. It took them 7 days to catch up with them. Just about the time they got there, God came to Laban and said, you make sure you don't hurt Jacob. So the next day they caught up with him, and Laban said to Jacob, why did you leave? You just left without me even being able to kiss my daughters and my grandchildren goodbye. And so they were able to leave, and Laban went back home, and he promised he wouldn't cause any trouble for Jacob, and Jacob promised that they wouldn't be any trouble for Laban, and they wouldn't have a peaceful relationship. And so Jacob was heading back home. But who was at home? Who? Esau. Now it's 20 years later. But remember, did Jacob, when he leave, did he say, please forgive me, Esau? No. He just thought, I'm going to leave, and maybe he won't be mad. Maybe he'll get over it. How many think Esau got over it? No. 20 years. Maybe he got over it. Jacob didn't know. He's starting to head back. He's thinking, what am I going to do when I see Esau? Is Esau going to be friendly? Is he going to be over it? Or is he still going to be angry? What am I going to do? And then he heard. He heard Esau is coming to meet you. He heard you're on the way, and he's coming, and he has 400 men with him. What is going to happen to me? You'll have to find out next week. Yeah? I don't have time to tell the rest of the story. I have to find out next week what happens when Jacob and Esau meet. But we should remember, God sent these problems into Jacob's life so that he could learn to do what's right. And because he loved